If you're a driven, active person who wants to reach and pursue a higher quality life with some ambition, then guess what? This podcast is for you. This is the Driven Athlete Podcast. With our sports physical therapy practice, we see a lot of active adults and active individuals, okay? And a lot of the times we hear from them, I want to be able to get back to working out intensely. I want to be able to work out like I used to. I want to be able to get after it. I want to be able to push myself. Right? I want to make some great physical changes and improve my strength and endurance and feel confident and all that stuff, improve my physique. But I can't because my arm hurts, or I can't because my elbow hurts, my back hurts, my hip hurts, my ankle hurt, my knee, and I don't know what's going on, right? We hear that all the time. That's what we do. And we get people back to exercising or like moving at a high level, get back to sports. So I do their thing. And the people that seek us out usually are tired of hearing from other practitioners, well, just don't work out anymore. Why don't you just rest? I sit down and take some Advil, right? It's like, I don't want to be, or just don't run anymore, right? Just don't do, marathons are bad for your knees. Why don't you just not do that anymore? It's like, I love doing that stuff and I love exercising and moving at a high level and I want to be able to do that for as long as I can. I'm tired of being told not to do that stuff anymore, like WTF, right? So finally they seek us out and we're like, yo, that's awesome. Let's get you back to doing the marathons, like high five, right? There is a way. And here's the interventions we need to do in the meantime. It's not going to happen today. You're not going to run a marathon tomorrow, but there's a pathway to there and we have to intervene with the right things over a long enough time horizon with intervening the right way. And we're confident we'll get back to that because you were previously. Let's get there again. Let's exercise at a high level. You're not going to max out bench press today if your shoulder's bothering you, or max out your power clean, jerk press, whatever, powerlifting. That's not going to happen today. But we're going to make strides and do that. And I'm very confident based on what you're presenting with and what you're describing that we can get there. And oftentimes the reactions that we get a lot of fulfillment in, the reactions like, oh, I thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to hear that. Versus I thought I was never going to be able to work out again. It's like, is that a great life trajectory choice to never exercise or be physically active again? Probably not. We're here to enable that. And we fit the right meld for the right people and the right messaging for the right population of people that like that kind of thing. We're your guys and girls. All right. So part of that and part of the things that we teach is a dynamic warm up. That's very important part of like a workout routine. And I don't even call it a warm up anymore. I call it movement prep. We have to prepare your body to move and groove at a high level, to do athletic movements and high velocity things that are stressful for your body, right? As an example, a sprinter isn't going to wake up in the morning, walk to the track, and just immediately max out sprint. They're not going to do that, right? Why? Well, they're not warmed up, right? Their hamstrings aren't going to be able to tolerate that kind of level of athletic activity again, right? Dynamic, athletic, intense activity. So what do? They do a warm up, right? And do some stretches and stuff. And I don't hate that. I love that. We could be more purposeful with particular issues that each particular person has and prepare those joints that might be lit up and compromised to be able to tolerate intense athletic movements without getting lit up all the time, right? We can purposely intervene with movement prep exercises or dynamic warm-up movements, call it movement prep, so they can tolerate those intense athletic movements and activities without consistently getting worse over and over again, right? And it just takes a little bit of purposeful intervention, okay? And we have to investigate what that is for you. Plenty of people have unique and different dynamic mobility and warm-up movement prep exercises compared to other people. If we look at who the best are, that would be pro athletes that have been doing it for a while. Let's mimic them. Let's put this into light. A lot of them are banged up oftentimes. Do you think high-level all-star basketball players like LeBron or Michael Jordan today, were they perfectly no pain all the time? No, they always have something going on. They just manage it, right? They manage it with purposeful interventions. They have guys like me or girls like that do my job, girls like me. No, guys like me or girls that do the same profession, travel with them 24/7 to do body work, right? Massage therapy. I don't hate soft tissue work. Massage can be very helpful and very, very good for intervening the right way. Totally. And they have nutrition help. They also have strength and conditioning for their workouts. They have sports psychologists and mental game professionals to work on the mental game. So from the physical standpoint, if they're always banged up, they always have issues going on. They have a shoulder thing, their wrist is bothering them, their knee has been given a little bit of trouble, and now their glute hurt, their quad hurts or whatever, their hamstring, they strained it or whatever, their back is giving them trouble. Things always pop up because they're pushing themselves so much all the time. So for the general population like us that aren't professional athletes and we want to exercise and do stuff at a high level and play with our kids and our friends and our family and do active, fun things, we also are pushing ourselves and things come and go. We can set ourselves up for success by doing purposeful movement prep to prepare our bodies to tolerate those activities ahead of time versus just not warming up and then just like getting hurt, right? Like I see it all the time. Like the beer league softball players, I've seen that a bunch. I've seen Achilles ruptures on the field, sprinting to first base, hamstring pulls all the time. That's probably the most common was hamstring pulls, like sprinting to first base and hamstring pull, right? They just weren't ready for that yet. We got to intervene purposefully. But anyway, pro athletes, they're always banged up and they're always managing some stuff. So they have purposeful movement prep and little dynamic warm-up exercises and mobility stuff for all of the joints that are lit up. If they have a shoulder thing, they have an elbow issue throwing thing right now, they have their back's been bothering them, they have hip impingement symptoms, and their knees bothering them. That's 5 body areas that are causing them problems. And they all interconnect totally. But they're going to have maybe 4 to 6 interventions per joint before they work out, before they do dynamics, just regular dynamic stretches, just to warm up, and foam rolling and whatever. That's good. That's a long warm up, right? It's like you're taking forever to warm up, right? I take forever to warm up. I mean, I'm banged up from playing college football and college volleyball, or I play 2 sports. So I got some stuff going on. I can't just jump into a workout and just do power cleans. Like I gotta be purposeful and take my time. I need to warm up, right? I need to get my body prepared to move athletically again, right? It takes a little while. And I don't care what anybody says. Like it takes me forever to warm up. They're like, you're still warming up. It's like, well, I don't care what you think. Like I need to do this, right? If I want to feel good later and for the long time for my life, right? Like what does this look like at 55, right? 20 years from now, what's that look like? If I don't intervene and purposely do some warm up and movement prep exercises to get ready. If you're tight all the time and things hurt and you just work out through it anyway without taking purposeful action, nothing changes unless something changes. What does that trajectory look like? Imagine doing the same thing with the same trajectory. What does 20 years from now look like? Or 10 years from now? Probably not great. So anyway, these pro athletes, let's look at the best. What are they doing? They're intervening at every joint. 4 to 6 types of exercises or little movement prep interventions to get that joint set up for success before they do the dynamic and also foam rolling and stuff. So their warm up takes like an hour and a half. That's their warm up. And now their body is ready and prepared to get after it with a full length basketball game or a football game, or baseball, whatever, or their workout, their strength and conditioning programming, right? Their workouts. Now they're ready so that when they're done, they don't feel like crap. Or they're like, now my back hurts, right? But I got through it. I did my workout, but now my back hurts. That's not the idea. Consistently doing that over time leads to people having issues over a long period of time, and that's not what we want, right? What does that look like 20 years from now? What about when you're 60, right? What do you want to move like then? Do you want to be pliable and feel good, or painful, stiff, and everything's jacked up all the time? It's a pretty simple answer, I think, right? We just have to intervene with the right things. So with the movement prep, oftentimes what we find for people with shoulder issues, we have to get the scapula more active and involved and mobile. We have to move it overhead better and then activate and recruit the muscles that purposely activate the shoulder, the scapula to move it overhead. We have to get those active before we get the other dominant muscles overly active ahead, right? They're going to dominate the small stability guys. Big, large muscles like the pec major, the deltoid, and the lat, and teres major. Those muscles are large, strong power movers. They generate the force. There's other stability muscles underneath that help move the scapula with the right mechanics. And if those small stability muscles are more dormant and aren't super active, what do you think is going to win? The strong dominant muscles or the dormant, inactive, less recruitable small stability muscles? It's a lose-lose every time. And we see that very often. And that's what we do with our movement prep. Like, hey, what if we intervened with these little movement prep exercises to activate those little stability guys, little stability muscles first, And now they're more recruitable and active and contributory to the movement before you strengthen and do workouts and stuff like that. That balance, muscle, it's a recruitment problem. That recruitment muscle neural activation problem balance is improved. And if we stay on that path, that's where we help limit compensatory movement patterns that ultimately cause things to get broken down over a long period of time if some things are overcompensating or overwhelmed compared to other things, right? We can intervene purposely. The other really common with that with low back pain is hip mobility and core activation. The same way we would activate and prep the shoulder, the scapula, stability muscles, like the serratus anterior, the lower trap, we have to get those guys active to get the shoulder blade to rotate upward. We can do the same thing with our core. Before we do power cleans or squats or lunges or sprints, what if we purposely targeted our core stability muscles to be more active, and then we do intense athletic exercises and activity? Things would probably be set up more for success. Oftentimes people usually, if they have back problems, where are they usually more tight? They're usually more tight in their low back muscles. So what does that tell you? Where they have, and if somebody has spasms and back spasms, like where are those spasms located? That would indicate to me the muscles that are very hyper guarded and lit up all the time and hanging on for dear life and very strong and dominant. What muscles are those? Usually the low back muscles, the erector spinae group, the multifidus, spinalis, iliocostalis, longissimus, all those muscles, the erector spinae group, those are the ones that are usually hanging on for dear life and super guarded. We don't hear, and those are the ones then are going to be the first activated, highly recruited, and very strong and active. People usually don't have abdominal spasms, right? Like, oh, there go my abs again. They're so strong and active that they're spasming again, right? It's usually the opposite. So what do you think is more dormant? Probably the core, right? What if we purposely activated those before we did intense exercise? What if we added it as part of the workout program to create more recruitability and normalize that recruitment pattern, which is going to create more muscle balance and keep things more stable. And over time, the muscle tissue will follow suit and things will be less dominant and strong and spasmy, unguarded all the time and tight. It feels like you're tight all the time, and more balanced and more fluid, right? And less tight. Awesome. Hip mobility is another big one for low back pain and hip issues because it's very correlated. Posterior hip capsule mobility, which a way to target that would be like a pigeon stretch kind of thing. But if we're not able to target that, we have to manually intervene and target your posterior hip capsule first and access the capsular mobility of your hip joint first and then stretch some stuff. Otherwise, we're just like powering through capsular restrictions. It's not going to cause impingement. It's not going to feel good. It's not as effective as it could be. And then the last thing being glute recruitment. So getting the glutes to actually recruit and activate first, and then strengthen on top of that with like exercise, lunges, squats, kettlebell swings, running, sprints. If the glutes aren't very strong and active, they're not recruitable as easily as they could be. If we don't get them active first, the dominant guys are going to kick on first and be the first things to contribute to strength and activating for athletic movement. And as an example, I'll take it from the best again, the people that push themselves the most, track athletes, for running as an example, what is a very, very common muscle strain that happens in track athletes and sprinters? The hamstrings. Do people ever have like glute strains? And they're like, oh, there goes my glute again. It's so strong and active that I pulled it again, right? It's just overly active. It's overly recruited, I should say. No, the hamstrings. So what does that tell you? That's usually more dominant and first easily recruited and relied upon to produce these athletic movements and strength training, the hamstrings. So then what should we recruit first on top of that to balance out the recruitment patterns? The glutes. And then once they're recruited and activated and we can find and recruit them better, then we can strengthen and normalize the recruitment muscle patterns with exercise. It's going to strengthen them. If we don't activate them and we do strength training, we're only reinforcing more strength of the strong dominant guys, which is the hamstrings. We're creating more hamstring dominance. It's increasing the disparity if we don't activate and recruit the right things first. So exercise is very helpful, but if somebody's battling an issue, strength training and exercise and running, all that stuff, it can reinforce more muscle disparity, muscle recruitment and muscle strength disparity. It can reinforce more imbalances because we're strengthening things that are already very strong. And as an example, if somebody's battling hamstring dominance issues, like the hamstring issues, I probably won't do RDLs. That's a hamstring strengthening exercise. Do we want to strengthen something that's already very strong? They're strong enough, right? No, we don't want to do that. We need to get the glutes more involved and normalize the recruitment pattern and probably get more core stability to help contribute to spinal pelvic stability, the pelvis, right? As an example, that's what I mean by like movement prep. We're preparing the body to move, to tolerate intense athletic exercise and activity and not reinforce poor movement recruitment patterns and imbalances. And also joint mobility. That's another, which is just joint mobility disparities. If something's a very hypermobile versus hypomobile, the hypermobility is already ready to move. Like water picks the path of least resistance. The body and joints are going to take the path of least resistance, and we're going to reinforce and move through hypermobilities. We need to get the hypomobilities, the ones that aren't very mobile and stiff joints, to improve their movement and mobility availability right now first. And it's going to improve the disparity of joint mobility imbalances, and then exercise on top of that. So we have the joint mobility disparities improved and more balanced. We have muscle recruitment disparities and muscle activation disparities and balances improved. Now exercise, and exercise in a way that's going to reinforce the right movement patterns. Otherwise, we're going to reinforce the wrong movement patterns and reinforce more muscle imbalance and disparities and more joint mobility disparities, which is going to worsen things, as an example. So that's why we do movement prep, which is your dynamic warm-up to help set things up for success and be more balanced.